Hello, everyone. My name is Aaron Christensen. Welcome to Horror 101 with Dr. AC, a gathering place for fellow fiends the world over to discuss all things freaky and frightening. If you want to be part of the conversation, and I hope you do, I invite you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, maybe go back and check out some of our previous episodes, leave a comment, and most importantly, let us know the fright flicks you'd like to discuss in the future. That kind of connection is exactly what we're looking for, and it really does make a difference. We're all about sharing the scare, and we want to hear from you. Since the closing shot of 1993's Jason Goes to Hell, fans had been clamoring for this slash of the Titans. A decade later, New Line Cinema answered their nightmares with a flick that was exactly the lowbrow masterpiece that the two screen legends deserve. Screenwriters Damian, Shannon, and Mark Swift concocted a storyline that builds upon history from the previous films, 17 in all, and manages to generate a few new twists of its own, while director Ronny Yu directs with energy, verve, and a solid sense of humor. The premise? After the parents of Springwood finally cover up all trace of his existence, Freddy Krueger, played by Robert Englund, is trapped in hell. In a stroke of demonic inspiration, he revives Crystal Lake's favorite orphan, Jason Voorhees, played by Ken Kersinger, to unleash a reign of terror substantial enough to allow Krueger to pick up where he left off. The trouble starts when Jason proves a little too efficient, robbing Freddy of his prey, and the stage is set for the climactic battle royale that combines high-flying wirework, CGI, plentiful gore-laced violence, and good old-fashioned Monster Mash mayhem. I'm super excited to chat about this Slash of the Titans with my awesome panel of guests. I'm going to bring everybody in now. And let's say hello to Katie McLean Hainsworth.
Hello.
Alex DiVincenzo. Matthew Amador. And Freddie Young. And we're here to talk about Freddy versus Jason celebrating its 20th anniversary. Thank you, everybody, for coming to the show, and welcome. So I want to let's do our origin stories here. Alex, where did you first encounter? Let's go with Freddy for the first time. Where did you first encounter your Nightmare on Elm Street? How old? What was your experience first encountering Freddy?
Well, as a matter of fact, I encountered both Freddy and Jason together in this movie.
Oh, wow.
This was Freddy vs. Jason. I attribute to making me the horror nerd that I am today. It came out when I was like 14 or 15, and I was familiar with Freddy and Jason as pop culture icons through pop culture osmosis, but hadn't seen any of their movies. And it hit me at the right age. I was interested in like the bands on the soundtrack. That kind of also made me interested in the movie. So I was like, okay, I got to check this movie out. I want to see what Freddy and Jason are about, but I don't have the time or the budget to rent 17 movies. So I was just like, I'm pretty sure I can just rent the first Nightmare on Elm Street and the first Friday the 13th. I'm like, get the gist of it, right? Like, how complicated can it be? Little did I know, of course, egg on my face at the end of Friday the 13th. But I went in with my limited knowledge and loved it. Loved Freddy vs. Jason, and then went back and completed the cycle.
Wow.
Awesome. Let's bump over to Freddy.
Oh, I'm old, so I watched both these characters in the mid 80s. So I watched Freddy first. It was way before Dream Warriors, because Dream Warriors is the first nightmare that I really loved. And I remember like renting the VHS tape and just rewinding that Dawkins video over and over and over again. I think the people who rented the film after me probably hated me because I kept wore that tape out. And I kind of knew rumors about the Freddy vs. Jason because I knew it was supposed to happen like in '88 for Friday the 13th Part 7, and they changed it to Carrie versus Jason, the New Blood. And I remember watching Jason Goes to Hell in the theater. Did not like that movie at all. I still don't like that movie. But that end shot with the glove grabbing the mask is just so iconic in horror that I was so excited for this movie, even though I had to wait 10 years for it. And we had New Nightmare, we had Jason X in between that, but I was hyped for this when it came out.
Cool. Let's bounce down to Katie.
I saw this in the theater, although rewatching it last week, I was like, oh no, I don't remember this at all. I did not see this in the theater until we got to the corn maze scene. For whatever reason, I was like, oh yeah, corn maze. I've seen this one. So I saw this in the theater, but I was like Freddie in the 80s. I watched all these movies. I was too young to see them in the theater. I couldn't get in, but I was old enough for them to hit the sweet spot of what I wanted to watch. So I watched anything that I could on cable. I think I saw the first movies of each of these franchises like just dozens of times. I'm still frightened by the first Nightmare on Elm Street. That's about it for the entire other 17 movies or 16 movies that they are. That are really, I don't really think of the Jason movies as horror movies. I think of them as slasher movies, and they're about the creativity of the kills and stuff. But I was scared of Freddie, and it hurts me to see how far he's fallen in the many, many years since that first movie came out.
And let's bounce to Matthew.
Hey, yeah. Well, my journey with these folks started being a kid of the 80s as well, like being transfixed by the VHS box art. Oh my God.
Yeah.
What does this mean? This amazing, just the impressionistic. Oh, it was great. So before I even got to watch any of the movies, I was transfixed by the box art. I was obsessed with the NES games of Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th, of which I'm wearing a shirt of today.
I love it.
And the first time I actually got to watch one of the movies, because I was not allowed to rent any of them, my stepfather had left Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. He had left it in the little rewinder device that we had. And while no one was looking, I just crept it out and I put it in the VCR. And I watched it while standing up, just in case I had to hit eject and pretend I wasn't watching it anymore. And despite the fact that the first movie was Jason Takes Manhattan, I still had to get my hands on the rest of both of the franchise. Watched them all. And Freddy vs. Jason was actually the first one I actually saw in the theaters. I had posters for Jason Goes to Hell, even though I wasn't allowed to see it, at the poster on my wall because it was forbidden to be shown in certain places in my community because it was too obscene. But yeah, it's been a lifelong love for these characters. I actually, when the Friday the 13th remake came out, I made a trek to see it on Friday the 13th in Crystal Lake, Illinois.
Wow. Hey.
Oh, wow.
That's hardcore.
Sweet.
I'd say ride or die, but that's a little too on the nose.
Achievement unlocked.
And was it everything you hoped it would be?
It was a movie that came out on Friday the 13th and was shown in Crystal Lake, Illinois.
That's enough.
It was better. It's better than the Nightmare remake, though.
Better than the Nightmare remake.
Yeah.
If they're ever
I did watch that for Connie Britton. Love her.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
that's a tough sit. I get to because I think I outrank you all in terms of age, in terms of seniority, because I saw Friday the 13th 1, 2, and 3 in the theater at a drive-in when those were all the movies there were. Like I saw 1, 2, 3 when 1, 2, 3 is all you had. It was 1982.
What a journey.
Well, we didn't get to see it in 3D because we were at the drive-in. So we did, but we did get to watch all the stuff coming at you.
Yeah.
And then I saw Nightmare on Elm Street, I think on VHS, and I think I could be wrong. This could be apocryphal, but I think it was on prom night when I, which just tells you what a swinger I was.
You're mixing up your franchises, man. That's what.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like watching
That's
watching
a
April
crossover we
Fool's Day
need.
on Christmas.
And I have seen every Friday the 13th movie in the theater since they came out, including this one. And let us indeed talk about this film. Came out in 2003, and I think it by the time we get to this movie, Paramount has given the rights away to New Line, and that's how we got that amazing last shot of from Jason Goes to Hell of the mask being dragged down by the gloved hand. But both of the movies had kind of descended into, if not outright parody, certainly on the edge of it. Like Freddie had gotten consistently more kind of jokey and corny. And, you know, when you send Jason into space, it kind of tells you where you're at. Although I will say I love Jason X. I think it's a hilarious, fun movie.
I love that movie so much. Yeah.
And in some ways, that movie kind of sets us up for this movie. It's like, what's the next logical step after we send Jason into space? We're going to have him fight, you know, another horror icon. And, you know, I'm going to go, I actually enjoy this movie quite a bit. I think it's one of the best of the series for both of them, only because the drop off had gotten so steep.
Right.
I feel like, you know, my favorite Friday the 13th is Final Chapter. I think that's the one that finally gets everything right. And Nightmare on Elm Street, it's like part 3 because they finally get the rules down. And so that's kind of where I'm sitting. What are people's kind of overall impressions of Freddy versus Jason? I'm getting a sentiment as to where you fall, Katie. So I'll get to you in a second. Let's go the other way. Matthew, what's your feeling on Freddy versus Jason?
I love this movie. I love this movie so much. I was one of the audience that was just gasping and hooting and hollering when the New Line logo popped up, and it was the combo of the Nightmare theme and the
Oh, that's so good.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Oh, I was right there with them. One thing that I really like about it is, and I don't, we'll get to something a little more specific about this later, but one reason I really like it is, yes, you talk about like the drop off in the franchises. And I mean, you know, you go from like these great, even Ronnie Blakely, like in the first Nightmare, and then eventually it's Roseanne and Tom Arnold. Okay. It's a little, one of these things is not like the other. And I'm not saying Kelly Rowland is a step up. But one thing that I really love about how it recovered from it is this was really a movie that I think, see, when I think of Friday the 13th movies, I think of them as being much more about location. It's about the camp. It's about what's around, the environmental kills, and very gothic in that way. And Nightmare isn't about that. Yes, Dream Warriors is amazing because of the hospital setting, but it's not because of the hospital. That doesn't dictate how all the horrors happen. It's much more inventive. It's much more magical. It's dreamlike because it's, you know, dreams. I like that this melded both of those. This doesn't necessarily feel like Jason put into a Freddy movie for me, because I feel like there are enough of the environmental kills. Much of the location becomes a personality. Eventually just take him to Crystal Lake, and then it's right there. It felt like a good merging of both of those styles coming together. Nor did it feel like Freddy coming into a Jason movie where he's just slashing. Like there's still creeping horror. There was still the dread. There was still the use of location. So I'm like super thumbs up about this movie, except for one line.
That's a doozy.
We'll get to that one. Alex.
Yeah, it's hard for me to not look at it through rose-colored glasses because it was so kind of formative to me. I recognize it has plenty of faults, but I can't help but love it. It's not quite my favorite. I mean, I think the original Nightmare is still the best between either franchise. Still holds up. For Friday, I think the final chapter is maybe objectively the best, but Jason Lives is my favorite.
That's my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. I love New Nightmare a lot too.
Yeah,
I think is kind of underrated ahead of its
Yes,
time.
high marks.
But I mean, yeah, like kind of echoing points already made. But yeah, like where could you go from there? The fact that they gave this like the budget that they did and like the marketing spend that they did for a movie they could have made for, you know, pennies, and a bunch of people would have showed up, but they really tried to make it kind of an event and succeeded. I love it.
Alex also has an amazing article, kind of retrospective on this film on bloodydisgusting.com. So get out your Google search and look it up, because it's a really terrific kind of love letter to this movie and the franchises, respectively. Freddie, I'll bounce over to you.
Yeah. First of all, I cannot believe this is 20 years old, because I feel like I just watched this in the theater, that opening weekend, being hyped up, hollering like everybody else in the theater, and all the kills are happening. I went with my cousins. I was the only one that wanted Freddy to win. My cousins went out at the end, unfortunately.
Really?
I was so upset. Yes, I wanted Freddy to win. I was a Freddy guy. But they love Jason.
I mean, I can't believe anybody didn't.
They were big Jason fans, and they got their wish at the end. That was really
Did he?
hard.
Debatable.
Well,
We'll get
exactly.
They always debated with me. Oh, he won. Did he really? But it's always an argument. Today, I still think this movie is really good. I still think it's one of the best films in both franchises, like someone said. Yeah, I mean, the bottom was pretty bottom for Friday the 13th, and Nightmare was pretty close. New Nightmare kind of elevated it a bit, but it didn't do that well, so it was kind of still like that bottom of the barrel kind of thing. But yeah, this film did a number, and it was great, and I think it's still great now. I think it's still flawed. I think Kelly Rowland is. We'll get to her, I guess, eventually, but other than that, I think the story works. I think this film works because it was made for the fans. I think that's why this still succeeds today.
Yeah, I don't feel like it's not the slavish fan service that we see kind of nowadays, where
it's organic.
Exactly, it doesn't feel like we're winking and going, "See this? See how clever we are."
Yeah, remember this?
Yeah, remember exactly. Remember this character? I have a picture of him on my. Anyway, Katie.
Yeah, I'm not that sentimental about this movie. Obviously, I'm a little more jaded about it. I did realize, 20 minutes ago, that it's a great metaphor for what's happening in the House of Representatives right now, and the speaker fight where Freddie is Kevin McCarthy and Jason is Matt Getz. But beyond that, I got really pulled out of it by how much incredibly complicated backstory there is with everybody in this movie, where I kept being like, oh, should I have watched some of the previous movies? And then I looked them up online, and I was like, no, none of these characters have been in anything before. Like, this is not building on anything except for the Hypnocil, right? So I got pulled out a lot. I get very distracted by Freddie having enough power to raise Jason out of hell to go to Springwood, but not anything else. Like, is that really the best plan that he can come up with? He's a very clever guy, and that was very dangerous for him to do that for himself. But I think he might have had a little. I mean, I know he's crazy and burned and obsessed with revenge and stuff, but it's not a great plan. So yeah, I found it a very unsatisfying culmination of both franchises, and mainly because the originals are so deeply ingrained in my soul, and I'm very affected by the decline in quality of both of these characters. I mean, I'm Freddie. I can't believe those people did not want Freddie to win. Like, the quality of villain between Freddie and Jason, to me, is it's a no-brainer. Like, Jason is so boring. It wasn't even him the first time.
I don't understand my cousin sometimes.
Fifth time.
Or
the fifth time. He's so. I mean, I enjoy the Halloween movies, but at the same time, that's more about what's going on with the characters than it is about Michael Myers, because these are just mindless people who can't die. They have they're single-minded, it's just not that. I like a more complicated. I like a guy who wants revenge on all the parents whose kids he fondled and that set him on fire. Like, that to me that's a rich history. I still get chills thinking of him with the long arms in the cloudy street with the girl in that first dream. So I very pessimistically watched this movie, making a lot of harsh jokes about, oh, nobody ever falls asleep anymore. Like, you just have to assume everybody's dreaming all the time because we never see anybody fall asleep, and all these tropes come back. I did like when Jason walked up on the porch and just killed that guy. Like, to me, that was really, really funny. So I didn't not enjoy it, but I was pulled. I wasn't carried away by it. I wasn't swept away the way I wanted to be with these two classic characters coming together. I wasn't swept off my feet with giddiness or excitement. It was just sort of like, oh, Freddie, that's a bad plan. I don't think anything lives up to that last moment of the other movie with the mask and the glove. That was a promise that I don't think that they kept.
I mean, Freddie did fight Jason. you know.
Yes, but it
delivers all
didn't.
the time.
I promise.
None of it gave
Jason
me the
did go to
chills.
hell.
None of it gave me the chills that moment gave me.
Speaking to your point, Katie, about it not being a great plan, there was something about the idea that Freddie needed the kids to be afraid again.
Yeah.
And I thought it
But
was
of him
interesting.
specifically.
That's what I mean. Like the fact
So
that
he
it was
needed
just
the
kind
dumb sheriff to say his name. That's all he needed. And then Kelly
Mm-hmm.
Rowland went off and was like, became inexplicably obsessed with the name. And then the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah,
But the complicated story with her boyfriend seeing her dad kill her mom, I was just like, what is going on here?
Can we talk to that? Can we talk to that? Because I was like, wait, how did Will, who's Monica
Ritter.
Keena's boyfriend, played by Jason Ritter, but like he swears that he saw the dad killing the mom, and what do we make of that? Because we see that flashback.
Well, Freddie tells her later that it was him, right?
And you
Right,
see
but-
he just like pops up in the
Yeah.
weird.
So
That is a
complicated.
weird unnecessary plot point just to add another adversary with the dad, I guess. But
Right.
yeah,
I think
But like, if anybody
that was
was really suspecting the dad at that point, it's like you've watched Scream too many times.
it was just a major plot hole that wasn't resolved the right way. Because I feel like unless he was dreaming that
This guy
her dad killed
didn't need it at all.
mom, like I don't know.
To me, what it introduced in terms of a nightmare movie is one of the main themes of nightmare movies is you cannot trust the parents.
Yeah.
The parents are
Right,
always
right.
adversaries. They
Yeah,
always,
good point.
they drug their kids
That's a
and
great
make them
point.
go to sleep. And
Yeah.
then everybody dies, the house burns down. And this is a way to kind of introduce that, to introduce the sense that there was like something untrustworthy about him. It was kind of like, okay, I don't know what you're going to do. You're going to take a knife to a dream demon? Like, I don't know what you're doing, Dad. I'm not sure there. And who knows? Jason Ritter was like climbing up a trellis. Maybe he was, you know, I don't know. It's a horny teen. High.
Drunk.
Probably high.
Dawson's Creek in it.
So yeah, so the fact that that was the impetus, was that we need to get the kids of Springwood scared again. I love that rave sequence in the
In the
cornfield,
cornmates, yeah.
because it's just like it just goes wild. and I because I'm trying to think of like a Friday movie where that kind of mass murder occurred previously. Was it 2?
Part 2
But-
at the pool party.
That's Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Nightmare,
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
There's a Friday moment. Oh,
But we hadn't
Yeah, because
seen like
Friday
we
it's
hadn't
almost
seen-
always one by one, or
Yeah,
Right.
that's
sometimes a couple at the same time. But
formula.
Yeah.
but it's almost like, I don't know. I feel like if you were to ask someone who hadn't seen the movies to describe one, they describe a scene more like the corn maze.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a highlight of either franchise, really. Just
Mm-hmm.
that taken on its own.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in that scene. You know, when the character's about to get raped and Jason saves and kills her at the same time.
Well,
Saves.
And then you have like this Jack Black wannabe throwing gasoline on him, burns him,
Yeah.
and then just goes through the whole.
Oh, yeah.
it's a long fire
sequence.
stunt too.
Yeah.
what is the line? Is like, oh, this, I'm getting so drunk off this Everclear.
Everclear,
He has
yeah.
a pitcher full of Everclear. I'm
Kicking
like,
my
what a weird
ass.
line. What a weird line.
Also,
However,
you're
it
gonna
sets it
die
up.
from that. Don't worry
It
about
sets it up. If you need something that's flammable.
Alex, you actually the fact that this was the first one of them you'd seen, I wrote down like, this is a Freddie and Jason movie for people who've never seen Freddie and Jason.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like and that I think that's the thing, Katie's like, it provides all of this backstory just so it feels like there is backstory. So you don't feel you need to have gone back and watched all the movies.
Right.
What you just said, Alex, the fact that these two characters are so, of pop culture. And so you can go and see Freddie versus Jason and feel like, okay, I know that the guy in the hockey mask is Jason, and I know the guy
Yeah.
with the claws is Freddie, and they're going to fight each other. Cool, go.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I feel like that movie fulfills on that promise.
Yeah,
and I
those
like-
scenes when they're fighting were I'm the most engaged I was. the whole
Ronny
time.
Yu.
Yeah, I didn't have
That's very
the issue that most fans did. They were waiting a decade for it. Like, obviously, I could see it being disappointing if you were waiting 10 years for this.
It was never going to be this dark, I mean, Jason Goes to Hell is very different. Jason X is very different. And even New Nightmare and Freddy's Dead both are playing very much in kind of the comedy horror vein. So everything doesn't feel like we're going to go back to our quote roots and get really dark again. Because what fun would that be? This is very much like a versus movie. You know, we want to see Godzilla versus King Kong and have at it.
Was actually thinking back about Jason Ritter, about the Will character, how it was interesting. I don't know if I guess it adds depth to it. I don't know if it's necessary though, that him seeing the dad or saying, hey, this dad was stabbing his wife and then being put away for that reason makes him one of the only people, if not the only person apparently in Weston Hills who's there and has not seen Freddy. Everyone else has a connection to Freddy, and that's where they're on Hypnocil, so they already know about it. So it creates a slight conflict. I'm putting conflict with a question mark.
A very subtle distinction that I don't
between him and his friend, because his friend even has to tell him what's going on, and he's like, don't talk that mess, man. Don't talk that mess.
And our characters are, fleshed out such as they are. I mean, the cast is fine. Monica Keena, who is so Brittany Murphy. I was like, wow, I had forgotten what a Brittany Murphy doppelganger she is. But then you had Jason Ritter, the guy who plays the sheriff. He has done he has 400 credits on IMDb, a lot of it voiceover. But I remember him as the mean head of security for The Fly 2. He's the guy who gets vomited on and just gets melted. He's delightful. I love it whenever he pops up.
I love that movie.
This last rewatch I just did, wasn't aware of this, but much of the internet is that Evangeline Lilly is kind of hanging out in the background.
Yeah,
I read that.
An extra.
Shout out to Catherine Isabel too.
Yes, oh my God, Catherine Isabel.
I was really glad to see her because I'm a huge Hannibal fan. So I was like, she does do other things. That's good.
And have you seen her in Ginger Snaps, Katie?
No, I have not seen, but I looked her up and was like, okay, these are all going on my list.
Yep. Yeah. Ginger Snaps is a great Canadian horror film from 2000, I think. And then it had 2 sequels that came out the same year, Ginger Snaps Back and Ginger Snaps The Beginning. And all 3 of them are pretty solid, but that first film is just great. And she is so good in it.
Yeah, I like her.
So it was fun to see her. And then she also, I forget how much horror stuff Catherine Isabel has done. She's in
American Mary.
American Mary. Yeah. She's in the Carrie remake with Angela Bettis. It's just fun to see these people who kind of embrace the genre. Even Jason Ritter's dad, John, was in the horror movie called Terror Tract. Did you have another one, Freddie?
Bride of Chucky.
Yeah, he's in Bride.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Ronny Yu. Yeah, with father and son.
Oh,
so let's talk about some favorite moments from Freddy versus Jason. For me, it's the scene in the hospital where you have all of the kids lined up, and they all kind of sit up in unison. It taps into something that feels kind of dark and scary for a moment. I was like, that's cool. That that has a nice visual.
I liked the sequence of capturing Jason with the needle and the guy getting cut in half. I was like, this was well done.
By our Jason Mewes wannabe.
Well executed.
Yes.
Wish.com, Jason Mewes. I love Trey's death, where he's folded in half in the bed.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so good.
That's killing the movie.
I think that's
Also Trey is the most horrible character.
Oh, so bad. But he's got a cute butt.
That's right. That's all it takes.
Not anymore.
Ready?
I like the flashback with Jason when he's young, in the Crystal Lake. I think that was done really well. At first, you kind of get confused, why is Monica Keena's character in this? It's not her dream, but you kind of see that Freddy kind of pulled her into the dream. So I kind of dug that. I like the whole sequence. I like when Freddy flies out of the water towards her. I think that whole sequence is pretty cool.
The one scene that really creeped me out the most, and really I've seen how many movies like this one? The thing that really kind of just icked me was in that dream sequence there when Freddy is, first it's the counselors having sex on the patio, and then it becomes Freddy having sex with the corpse.
Yeah.
That was great.
Dead on her feet.
That's what I go to this for. Yeah.
And I don't feel like at least I feel like Freddy's one-liners here don't feel like groaners.
Yes, but compared
I remember
to
him saying,
Freddy's
"I am God," and being running out of the room terrified. That's what I want.
Yes.
I feel like it kind of brought him
Bar is
back
pretty high.
to like the sweet spot of like part 3 and 4, where he's like a
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
goofy, but also still sinister. Like he has that
Yeah,
side to him.
yeah, yeah.
He's
He's having
playful,
fun.
but-
Yeah, exactly.
But he's more
Even that
serious this time.
Even
Say
that
that again,
callback
Freddie?
line of how sweet dark meat. Like that's where it gets like it's jokiest.
Yeah.
That
But he still
delivers it
with the love.
line makes me cringe. I go,
It's a terrible line.
Yeah.
that whole sequence with him and Kelly
But
Rowland.
that's
is
just I was
really
like,
bad.
oh, great, we've descended directly into racism and homophobia. Awesome,
Yeah.
that's
Which-
what this movie needed. But which
Katie-
supports my metaphor about the House of Representatives.
That does actually work for you, Matt Gates. Reference right there. But it also is like a callback to
No, yeah,
another line. Yeah.
I got it. But her line
Yeah.
in response was improvised, and so I was like,
I
you
know,
could've just
right?
cut all this. Like you had
Which-
options, you didn't need
okay.
to use any of it. I don't know.
So this last rewatch, because having known that it's improvised, that one line that,
Yeah.
that Kelly Rowlands does, every time throughout the movie she says a word that starts with F, I keep thinking she is one take away from saying this. That's like her go-to.
I didn't understand her character, period. Like her character is so bizarrely written. Like she wants a nose job. She doesn't like the nerdy guy for some reason. Then she ends up liking him. It's all over the place. I'm not sure. Like,
Well, it's like
what
she's
done.
she's like
Yeah.
kind of like the stock 80s like bitchy character, but I feel like the
She's
rest
the
of the
best
movie is
friend
almost
also, and the
yeah. I
girlfriend,
wouldn't
like,
say
it's like-
I wouldn't say the movie's above that kind of
Right, it's-
stereotype, but like
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like we as a people by 2003 had kind of moved beyond like characters that
Yeah,
are trying to be friends that aren't really friends. Like
yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
even back then I watched. I was like, this
that's what I
doesn't
mean. Like
work
even
for me.
before the F slur, which is egregious and
Yeah.
unforgivable, but like it's like why would anyone put up with her?
Yeah, right. It does make you wonder if like Beyonce watched that and was like, I fired the wrong 4. Oh, that character, Kia, she has the makings of a really good Friday character. Like she reminds me of explicitly of characters who've either tried to put on more makeup to try to be more sexy or been really self-conscious about their looks. Either I think I'm thinking of they're blending together in my head because Friday the 13th also isn't great about character depth necessarily. You're not there for that. You're there for the kills.
They don't last that long.
But yeah, but she doesn't quite take off because when Linderman at one point says like, "Oh, you with all that makeup on your head, can you even think?" I'm like, is it because I'm just used to Kelly Rowland or just
Yeah, it's
you
just
know
like she's not
I think
really
how
good at
women
makeup.
are presented in film?
Yeah.
Like it's just like maybe she had her hair done.
Or they reconceived the character and didn't revise the script. Like I think that's
Or
very
that.
feasible
That's
too.
probably
Or that.
it.
I love that we get to see both Jason in Freddy's world and we get to see Freddy in Jason's world.
Mhm.
And because when we see Jason in Freddy's world, he's just knocking the crap out of him. I mean, there's literally like the pinball machine
Yeah.
noises as he's being bounced all around. But I was a little kind of like, I was surprised at how powerful Freddy is made to seem in the corporeal world. You know, like he doesn't seem like he should be able to match up against
Yeah, it's a
Jason
great
for 5 seconds.
visual. He's so little. And that guy who plays Jason is so big.
And-
It's such a great visual.
That's why we didn't get
but if
Kane
it's-
Hodder.
Right.
We should talk about the lack of Kane Hodder and Ken Kersinger.
I feel like Ken Hodder should have done the movie. I feel like they should have let him do this. It was a big movie. He earned the right to play Jason in this movie, regardless of the height difference, whether they wanted to make Jason more sympathetic or whatever. I think Kane Hodder could have pulled it off. He earned that right. He earned that shot. I still feel upset that he didn't do it.
I think also like if you can make Tom Cruise look tall, you can
Right.
make Kane
Yeah,
Hodder
like
look
you
tall.
can-
you
put
know?
That was
on
my
the
exact
list.
same thing.
Yeah.
This is
He made
cinemagic.
him pinball around the thing.
Right.
Like it's just yeah. Robert Englund is a slight man. Like he's
Yeah,
not,
he's not a big guy.
He's a little guy. I'm pretty sure they still would have looked a lot different from each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even if they're the
Hadley's
same
Kane
height,
Hodder,
Kane
yeah.
Hodder is.
Right, he's
is
tough
Yeah.
and big. Yeah.
Stop big.
Oh, I was just gonna say I didn't have the expectations of who Kane Hodder was at the
Yeah,
Sure,
time.
of course.
But in retrospect, now watching them back, if you're marathoning them, like Kane Hodder brings such. Even though I think his 4 movies are probably 4 of the lesser in the franchise, but he breathes such life into that character, like gives it such a performance. He's not just a stunt guy in the role.
Mhm.
And to go from that to Ken Kersinger, who like did what he was directed to do, which is basically nothing. He's like a Terminator. He's like a big robot that kills people. Yeah, it's just like, I feel like there would have been a lot more, I don't know, chemistry, charisma if it were Kane Hodder.
Well, and I wonder if maybe that's what Ronny Yu was actually trying to steer against, because I know
let Freddie have the charisma.
Well, because Kane Hodder, having done it as often as he had, like when we got to Jason X, there's, you know, stories of the director saying, and then I want you to do this, and like Kane Hodder going, Jason wouldn't do that. You know, like he had this ownership of it, and Ronny Yu like had a vision of how he wanted to juxtapose these two characters. And I have no doubt that if Kane Hodder had played the role, he would have had some ideas as to how it should be played. So there was,
that's what you think.
I think that maybe that was part of it, was that they were like, let's go with somebody who is just that monolith versus somebody who is nimble and verbose and things like that, so that they really are completely juxtaposed in the same way that like the fire that destroys Freddie is, you know, juxtaposed by the water that destroys Jason. You know, I think that they were really looking for polar opposites, and that's why I don't mind what Ken Kersinger does here, because I think it fits that template. Like, my favorite incarnation of Jason is Final Chapter, played by Ted White, where he's fierce and energetic, but he doesn't feel emotional. Right. And Kane Hodder's Jason always feels really emotional, like he's about to explode, like he's pumping himself up.
He's always pissed off or something.
Yeah, he's very angry.
Yeah. Can we talk about this whole water and fire thing? Because that's one of the biggest plot holes of the movie. Because how is Jason afraid of water? He's been in water for multiple movies. Freddy's never been really afraid of fire. I mean, that's how he died, but he was never really afraid of the fire. I mean,
and that's where I point to, this is the movie for people who've never seen Freddy versus Freddy or Jason.
It's
like, oh yeah, okay, I buy that. It's like everybody else is like, going, wait a minute, that's not right.
When they first say like, you know, wait, Freddy died by fire, Jason by water. How can we use that? The answer comes 10 minutes later when they go to the next set piece, and you set the camp on fire. So there you go.
On the water.
Asked, answered.
Yeah, it's a very plot coupon driven film.
I do feel like that line, I mean, it's very kind of ham-fisted as it is, but I think people misconstrue that as meaning Jason as an adult killing machine is afraid of water, where when we see him when he's like a little boy and it's like it's in the dream world and Freddy's like literally in his mind, so like you could see why he might have that, you know, maybe it's not fear isn't the right word, but certainly a negative connotation associated with water, even though he spent a year at the bottom of Crystal Lake several times over. And
to your point, like that's in Freddy's world that we see him like surrounded, like there is some sway that Freddy can have in that regard.
Yeah, that's how I always took it. But like I obviously see, like again, it's the line itself is kind of lazy writing.
Well, and the other line, and Alex and I were talking about this backstage, is that the line that's in the trailer of place your bets, I was waiting and waiting and waiting, and I'm like, they don't say it, and it is actually a deleted scene on the Blu-ray. But I was like, oh shoot, I didn't realize they'd never say it in the movie because I'd heard it so many times in the trailer. So I just kind of like plugged it in on my own, I guess. There's a lot of heavy-handed lines that I don't know. You know, I think they either are fun, because I always feel like, you know, these are, at least as the series went on, these become very much popcorn and beer movies that you're meant to groan, you're meant to throw popcorn, you're meant to have a good time.
But those movies are more enjoyable when you are also sometimes actually scared or horrified. You know, that's what makes those groany moments worth it, when you get taken off guard by something that actually gets you.
Like jump scares, or do you mean something that's actually horrific?
Anything that gets you. Something real, something that isn't just, oh, that's a creative way to kill that guy. Cool, yeah. Oh, that's funny. I mean, like, it's more enjoyable when something really real happens.
Because for me, I'm kind of a little like, every time there's humor, I tend to be mad because I don't want my humor to undercut my horror. I understand that a lot of that there's whole subgenres about it.
Yeah.
But it's not always my favorite thing. Give me a boring Hellraiser over an Army of Darkness any day.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
A lot of these movies become, well, not so much the Friday the 13th, but a lot of the Nightmare movies did become that kind of like, there was the jokiness.
Yeah,
So everything was brightly lit.
Yeah.
And
Looney Tunes.
those, Looney Tunes. Oh my God, the Power Glove. Dying in the beach, like pushing your head in the sand, like it just becomes a little bit. It's not horrific so much, and as much as they're not my favorite entries in the franchise, they are a part of the lore and they're a part of what made Freddie.
Mm.
Right.
You know, beloved Halloween costume, and you know, did he present at the VMAs one time or something? Like he's
Probably.
done a lot of public stuff, you know. It was a way to incorporate that sensibility into this movie. Because I mean, pinball game and like tilt, and hip thrusting, like that's just a little bit of like a nod to the people who are like, oh, this is fun. I'm here for fun, not to be scared. A little bit of a wink to them.
Yeah, I don't think this movie ever intends to be scary.
No.
I think it sets out to be fun, and fun falls under the heading of gory and creative kills and watching these two tear each other apart. Like, I think that's the people who came to this movie. I don't think they were expecting or even wanting the first Nightmare on Elm Street or the first Friday the 13th. I think at this point, you know, we've kind of evolved to the series has evolved to a point where it's like, we can't have Freddy versus Jason and have it be a dark movie. Have it be a dark, scary movie. Like, that's just, you can't have those two things.
I mean, the title itself denotes action. It's not horror.
Right.
Freddy versus Jason is an action.
Can we talk about Betsy Palmer for 2 seconds?
Let's talk about Betsy Palmer.
Fake Betsy Palmer.
Fake Betsy.
I read that Betsy Palmer was asked to do it, and she thought the part was too small.
Well,
Which
the part is too small.
I'm just dying to know
She just didn't
what
want to do
else
it.
Betsy Palmer has going on. She couldn't.
Every time I've seen an interview with her,
couple a
she's
day.
never been super enthused about this part of her legacy.
Yeah, that's too bad. That's too bad because she's delightful in that person. You know, I think she's delightful in it. It'd be a fun thing to embrace throughout your career, as long as you're doing other things, I guess. But
Well, and she
if you're
was.
not,
I
you're
mean,
not.
she was showing up at conventions and things like that. So maybe it was out of a sense of loyalty to Kane. She was like, I can't do it if I can't be sitting next to Kane at the next convention.
Right.
Be like, I can't believe you sold me out, man.
My own mother.
But yeah, exactly. But I feel like Kane and Ken have kind of mended fences as well. You know, like, because Ken Kersinger was his stunt double on Jason Takes Manhattan. I think, is that right?
Yeah, he was in the diner scene when the guy was behind the bar towards the end. Yeah,
I saw that one in the movie theater too, and have
I saw that one in theater too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that ending is so bad.
Oh man,
I live in New York City. New York City does not work like that.
No, but
you don't flush the sewers with sludge every night?
No, we don't.
But Canada obviously does. Canada flushes their
Canada,
sewers with toxic
clearly,
waste.
yeah.
I wouldn't know.
Jason Takes Vancouver.
And all the actors you see on television.
And I feel like that's the thing. Like, both the series had gotten to a point where it's like, why not have fun with it? And interestingly, you know, like with the Nightmare on Elm Street reboot to 2010, you know, like, they tried to make it dark and it was just a drag. You know, it wasn't great filmmaking. We had, you know, like our Jackie Earle Haley didn't have the kind of dynamic performance. You know, it was just kind of a bummer. But I think that was the idea. They were like, we want to go back to these dark roots. And it's like, I think that the barn door's open. There ain't no horses here anymore.
I'd always rather see a new idea than a reboot of anything.
It's almost like they learned the wrong decisions, or they learned
The
wrong things
wrong
from the
lessons,
success.
yeah.
Thank you. The wrong lessons. I can't speak at all. What's wrong? Cat got her tongues. Yeah, that was David Freddy. But they learned the wrong lessons from the success of any of the Eli Roth movies.
Yeah.
The French horror that was coming out. Any of even timeline now. When were Rob Zombie's
I was just going to say, we're celebrating, this year's the 20-year anniversary for House of a Thousand Corpses.
Yeah.
Oh,
so they came out almost at the same time. Like, I think Freddy versus Jason came out maybe a month ahead or a month behind, but they came out right around the same time. And it really was kind of a passing of the torch of like
old versus new.
Because House of a Thousand Corpses has a lot more fun with it. Like it's a more fun. I never thought I'd say Rob Zombie having fun, but it's a fun.
Well, he's having fun for
He's
sure.
having a great time.
He's having fun. Like his the Dragula music video. Like he's just having fun there. And then eventually it goes towards like then we go to Devil's Rejects. Then we go to things shift, and that's where I feel like the remakes for Nightmare and for Friday really started looking at that and being like, oh, that's what we should do. That's what makes a whole for. And that's when you lose the fun. That's when you lose the joy.
Our two screenwriters did the Friday the 13th reboot. And I mean, if you look at the first, 15 minutes of that movie, it's basically 1 through 4. It's Fridays 1 through 4. And then it goes down a different path. Any thoughts about that one since we're here?
To address the other point real quick about kind of the passing of the torch, I think also important on this timeline is like a month or two after Freddy vs. Jason came out, the Texas Chainsaw remake came out.
This month,
And I feel
actually,
like-
it's 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I
right.
feel like that's really kind of got the ball rolling on the whole remake trend, which obviously Freddy and Jason succumbed to. Michael first, and then I like the Friday remake. It's not like my favorite of the franchise, but I think it does a lot right. It's like fun, but not, I don't know, doesn't take itself too seriously, but also doesn't go so goofy as to going to space or whatever. Not that I don't dislike Jason X, but yeah, that cold open, that first 15 minutes, I think is phenomenal.
Fantastic,
And then the rest is just kind of like a standard Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
I have no memory of
An
it
underground
whatsoever,
lair.
though I know I've seen it. Is Jared Padalecki in it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I've seen it. I have
So you
no
have
memory
one
of
memory
it.
of
That's all I see. Yeah.
It's an interesting one. I remember I rewatched it earlier this year, actually, because I really liked I liked it when I saw it. I rewatched it and still kind of liked it, and so I rewatched it again, and I was like, well, I don't like it as much. And now it's because their Jason was just a very different Jason. This is a Jason that plays with his food. This is a Jason that sets traps. This is a Jason that was much more actually like Platinum Dune's Texas Chainsaw. Anyone from that movie, as opposed to a lumbering behemoth or a emotive silent killer like when Kane Hodder was Jason. It was just a very different way of having a Jason out there. And I did like that it was kind of all around like just a bunch of weed. Like that's kind of, I'm like, that feels very on brand. On brand with the horror movies of the 80s. And I will say though, I did like the performances. And you know what? Speaking of pop performers in horror movies, I will say Willa Ford, thumbs up, as opposed to Kelly Rowland here.
Better than Kelly Rowland.
Yeah.
Freddie, do you have any thoughts on the remake?
I mean, I didn't like it when I first saw it. I kind of like it more now. I feel like it fits more with the earlier Friday the 13th movies because it actually kind of remakes the first 4, to be honest. I think it has its moments. I don't think it's the worst installment in the series. I do wish they made a sequel to Freddy vs. Jason over this, but what can you do? It's better than the Nightmare remake. I mean, that movie is just awful in every single way.
Yep.
High five.
Tough.
Yes.
Tough.
I think it's the one thing we can all agree on.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you all so much. I knew I wanted to honor this one. It being the 20-year anniversary. Thank you so much. This is really fun, and look forward to having you all again. With the exception of Katie, this is all first-time appearances for all of you, Matt and Alex and Freddie. So looking forward to having you on again very soon.
We'll see you for the 30th anniversary.
We'll do a reunion of this.
Cool.
I'll probably like it more then.
Take your
until next time, keep searching, keep exploring, and keep sharing the scare.